Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back to the Storm Cellar. Not a tragic day here in the cellar. I think we took last week off to give ourselves some time to collect our thoughts and be a little more logical and analytical, leaving a little bit of the emotion hopefully behind. It still stings, but I think Ray and I kind of agree. This doesn't sting this stings worse rather than like getting swept last year hurts. Getting swept this year would have been catastrophic.
Yeah.
I don't think that's overstating it. But they fought back. They won 2 games. You lose 4-2. Most people predicted 6 or 7 games. We just flipped the script, right? The wrong team won. But what do you think, Ray? I think we agree on that, right? Like this hurts worse than the Florida sweep of last year that didn't happen per Rod Brindamore.
To me, without question, it does. And you're right. It was way too raw for us to address this last week. It definitely needed time to think and gather your thoughts. And I'm still having trouble processing it. This one definitely does sting more, and it hurts more because in the end, former now GM Don Waddell managed to do everything that you, many Caniacs were begging for him to do in the years previous, and that is add pieces at the trade deadline, add some extra pieces, right. Boost yourselves up, and that gives you your opportunity to go hard into the playoffs. And certainly the addition of Jake Gensel and Kuznetsov, it wasn't everything that we needed, but it was a boost, and it brought fire to the lineup. It brought confidence, and they were showing it going into the playoffs and through that first round. And then the boys hit a brick wall. And I'm not necessarily stating Shesterkin, although he did play, really quite well. I'm talking the disappearance of key points that you need to win in any playoff series disappeared. And so it takes a lot to kind of figure it out. And here's the other thing. It isn't all just on our guys. There was another team out there, and the other team did have the President's Trophy. Like they earned that. Just barely above us, but they earned it. So saying that it was all the Hurricanes' fault, you expected more out of them, but understand some of the reasons why we weren't getting as much out of them was because the Rangers were playing well. You know what I mean? So
yeah, absolutely. And if you look at the series by the numbers, you win 2, you lose 4, you lose the first 3.
Yeah.
And I think a sweep in this year would have been way more catastrophic than last year.
Yes.
And the reason for that is Igor Shesterkin has played well in goal again this year, but he's not the Igor of a couple of years ago where he felt unbeatable, right? He's not Theodore in 2002. He's not Bobrovsky in 2023. Shesterkin against the Canes had a .919 save percentage, very respectable, but gave up 2.8 goals, allowed. Which, if you all-time playoff goaltender records, Tim Thomas had the best save percentage in the playoffs ever, .933. That's phenomenal, right? So that .919, not too shabby. That
yeah,
.919
no question.
that 919 would put Shesterkin in the top 30 all time, right?
Yeah.
Which is good. I mean, that's good company, but it's not, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The 2.8 goals allowed, Patrick Lalime from Ottawa, career 1.77 goals against in the playoffs.
I forgot how well he played in that playoff run.
I mean, just unbelievable, right? So a 2.8 puts you in like the top like 100 goaltenders.
Yeah.
So I'm pointing those out to say Shesterkin played well, but not unbeatable. What makes this hurt worse is last year, did they get swept? Yep. Sorry, Rod, they did.
Mm-hmm.
Bobrovsky last year against the Canes, a 966 and a 1.12. If you could do that over, not even a career, if you could do that over 4 series, there's no chance you don't win the cup. Like, nobody. No, the 80s Oilers or Islanders, right? The 20s and 30s Habs, nobody is winning a series if your goaltender puts up 966 and 1.12. Nobody's winning. Nobody's winning that series against you. So for all the things that happened last year, and as bad as it felt getting swept, when the goaltender's playing that well, there is nothing you can do to change that, right? That's just their goaltender being, completely lights out.
You tip a cap and show respect.
Right. You go, wow, we saw maybe the greatest goaltending performance in a series ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I legitimately mean for one series, like that might be all time.
Yeah.
This was not that. And like you said, Don Waddell went all in, right? They brought in Gensel and said, we need firepower. Here it is. Kuznetsov, I think reactions to him will be a little mixed. I know people love the player in terms of what he brought. I think he's still trying to fit in. We have him for another year, but I thought there were glimpses, right, of what he can be. And this is what we said the whole time, right? This is a low risk, high reward. And we saw some of that over and over, right? On our end with this series, the big thing is, and I'm very happy to say this, Ray, our net power play percentage was a 0 for the series. And that's a victory because it was negative. They scored more on our power play than we did, until game 5. We finally picked up a goal. So our power play ended up at 9.5%. But at least we scored one more power play goal than they scored shorthanded.
That was probably the most infuriating situation of all in that series. I'm gonna.
And they did it first.
Yeah.
They scored a shorty before we got our first power play goal. I mean,
it was just nuts. Nuts. Now, look, just circling back a little bit to Shesterkin just for a second. What we saw in game 6 was a very, very human Shesterkin for 40 minutes. The first 40 minutes, he looked completely ordinary. And it's like we had his number. And then that third period showed up and a couple of crossbars. It's like those posts, the crossbar and the post that was hit fueled him. And then he was starting to make these outrageous saves. And it could have been just wiped out. Whereas on the other end, what we say it all the time, right? If you're going to win in playoffs, you need 3 things. Your secondary scoring, right? You need scoring throughout the lineup, which we had, really throughout the playoffs. We were getting scoring from everywhere.
Yeah,
which was nice.
We had 19 goals for and 20 against the Rangers. Like, the scoring wasn't an issue.
No, not the issue. But the special teams and the goaltending, those are your 3 keys if you're going to go far. And the special teams was very unspecial. I don't think I've ever been so angry at what was going on with my team in my life while watching the game. The penalties that the Rangers took were being killed off by the Hurricanes.
Yeah, that's true.
We killed them off more than anything. They stayed back in their little square, their zone box, while the Hurricanes passed the puck around looking for the highlight reel goal with no one going to the front of the net. Now sorry, and I have to break this up. It's the power play number 1.
Was worse than power play number 2 for sure. 100%.
It was 100% worse, and they were the ones most guilty, just passing the puck around the perimeter all the time with no one going to the front of the net. They're going to the side of the net looking for that sneaky backdoor pass, slap pass or whatever. But the problem is that you've got a lot of sticks to get through. Those don't come around very easy. And further, the passing around the perimeter wasn't sharp, wasn't quick. The guys were having trouble handling the puck when they got those passes to them. Sure, getting from one side to the other was 3 passes, and the first 2 were great tape to tape. The third one might get to the tape, but it's bobbled, and it gives the defender the chance to rush whoever had the puck and muddle things up. And they never, ever got to the front of the net. I mean, they had a couple of chances where it worked and they got that great opportunity, but there's no one taking away Shesterkin's ice. And
right.
I think Shesterkin, you can say, if he can see it, he'll stop it. But you look at all of the goals that we had, there was a form of screen in front of Shesterkin, or there was someone right in that dirty area. Very, very, very few shots from like just clean. The shooter beat the goaltender. There was maybe that one Gensel pass from Aho where he was right in the slot, boom, through the 5-hole. That really was it. But
right,
just barely.
You're talking about the 2 basic ways to score goals, generally speaking, especially on the power play, right?
Mm-hmm.
One is just screen the goaltender because he can't stop what he can't see most of the time. Or 2, you have to have those crisp, quick passes tape to tape so that your reaction time is simply too fast for them so they can see it, but by the time they react, the puck is by them, right? Those are, I think, most people now, we're still seeing new fans, but at the end of a hockey season, we're probably not seeing anybody brand new, right?
Yeah.
But on a power play or even 5-on-5, generally the idea is to get a 2-on-1, 2 offenders, 1 defenseman. One of the 2 of you has to be more open than the other one and get a shot off.
Yeah.
The Hurricanes they would get a 2-on-1 and then kick it back out, right? And then it goes around. Power play 1 would spend 30 seconds just passing around the perimeter.
Mm-hmm.
I would rather you take a slap shot, keep it low, look for a rebound, and just get a greasy goal than to spend 30 seconds, 25% of your power play just passing back and forth around the perimeter. Because you're not doing anything good. The problem it feels like, right?
Mm-hmm.
It felt like to me that they were all living out their boyhood hockey fantasies, right? You're in the street. Maybe you don't even have skates, right? Maybe you're playing street hockey and you're running around in shoes and you have that dream of like, I'm going to have like the wide open clapper from the top, outside the dots, and I'm just going to rip it past the goalie and the crowd's going to cheer. It's going to be amazing.
Tears through the net.
Right.
Like
And that seemed to be what they were looking for, or they're getting it out to the wings, to those super, low percentage chance shots that look amazing, right? Stastny had one last year.
Mm-hmm.
Was it? I think Kuznetsov or somebody had one this year right? Those goal line shots off the back of the goalie's helmet. Like those were the ones those are the kinds of things they seem to be looking for. I mean, they were literally passing down there, and then there's nobody from the net. So it's like, well, you have one option, and that's to go back out.
Yeah.
The whole point of getting it down there is to get it by the defenders to somebody in front of the net to just try and get a tip or a chip or through a legs or whatever. And they just didn't. And they totally shot themselves in the foot. And then the penalty kill was as bad as I've seen it in the Rod Brindamore era. 73. 74 would have been.
Yeah.
I'm not rounding up for them. 73.7% on the penalty kill in the series. Just brutal. Guys losing their man, defensemen pinching, the forwards not coming back, or,
puck watching. There was a lot of
there was
a lot of people getting really locked into where the puck was and not focusing on what was going on around them, behind them.
Yeah, it looked like the start of the season where guys aren't sure what they're supposed to do on the penalty kill, except for it's the playoffs. And it's the same group, right? D'Angelo in for Pesci, but D'Angelo knows the system.
Yep.
And just miss coverage after miss coverage. And you gave up a natural hat trick to Chris Kreider in the third period to lose a game. Now, some of that's because he's a very good player. But I hope the Canes in the offseason, meaning the players, the front office, we're going to get to. But the players, I hope that they leave with a really bad taste in their mouth because they threw away that game. There should have been a game 7. You were up.
Question.
You were up 3-1. You had the game. All you had to do was get through 20 minutes of hockey and not give up, or you were up 3-1, I think it was. And not give up, ended up being 4 goals. Like,
I'll tell you, Brad, and there's a lot of folks, everywhere who will just summarily line that up and say the third period was all Freddie's fault. All of it. And I refuse to stay by that. I will say this. The 3-2 goal poked in at the side of the net, that one is on Freddie. There is no question. That one had to be stopped. Full stop. Mm-hmm. It just there's nothing to it. That one was on him. The problem is that goal was allowed, and the entire team went into full-on panic mode. They stopped doing everything that they were doing for the first 40 minutes and were scrambling everywhere. And then there's the power play deflection in front of the net by Kreider. No chance. It was a perfect deflection. And wouldn't you know it, he was standing in front of the net to do that.
Yeah, it's almost like we should watch some of that video in the office.
Yeah. So there's that one. Perfect deflection. Now the game is tied. We're still scrambling. I honestly wonder why Rod did not call a timeout to let everyone just for 30 seconds. It may not have changed anything. And based on the way the guys were playing beyond that, but
maybe it's like when I tell my family, I'm like, hey, you just calm down. And that makes it worse. Maybe that's what's worse. I don't know.
That may be what would have happened.
But you're right, though. It's breathe, guys. Just breathe.
Yeah. And then
you have a lead. You have time. Just
the game winner, again, not Freddie's fault. The back door left open, not guarded, but not guarded the way it needed to be. Chatfield was on Kreider, and he had him, but could not tie him up. And that puck comes flying from around the back of the net to the front, tap in easy, and now you're down. And there was... I was holding on to belief from the things that I'd seen all season where, we've been 3 goals down before. We scored 2 goals in under a minute to win. I mean, we did 2 goals in 9 seconds twice in the series
Right.
before. So, yes, this team has the ability to come back, but understand all of the momentum was with New York. And everyone was just in, like I said, full on panic, and there was no way to come back. They were not in the right headspace. It was as though that 3-2 goal just shut the team off. I don't even know how to explain it. It
Yeah,
just,
I mean, sports psychology is a thing, right? I mean, there are sports psychologists, and I know Nate just worked with one and then had an amazing season last year. And you could feel it, right?
yeah,
The New York scores that second goal, and they're like, we're down, but we're in this. And the
yeah,
Hurricanes look deflated, and you could
deflated.
feel it. I
And
mean, it was,
oh,
and so I'm going to put you on. I'm going to put you on the spot for a second.
sure.
Feel free to be like, I don't know. Had we gotten average goaltending, reasonable goaltending, we I think could have won this series. It certainly would have went to Game 7. Kochekov had an 880. Anderson had an 878. They both allowed just shy of 3 goals a game, which is generally what I say goalies should do. And as somebody who's this is one of Anderson's worst playoff performances numbers wise.
Mm-hmm.
We've looked it up. We've talked about it before. In the playoffs, he actually is very solid. He generally gives up 2 goals a game.
Yeah.
All the things that you want a goaltender to do. Would you have played Kochekov more? I don't want to be so specific as to say which games and things, but generally speaking, after the Islander series where the Hurricanes were having issues, I mean, it was kind of ugly on the goaltending side there as well. Would you have said Kochekov should get the nod? And I'll go first to let you off the hook. I would have.
Yeah.
When Freddie is on, Freddie is on. And
Yeah.
Freddie, I would put him up against any current goalie in the league when he is feeling it. But when he's not feeling it, he has to adjust, and he can't just come. He doesn't just generally bounce back, in my opinion. He needs some time. Kochekov got 1 game in this series, right? He got 1 game in the first series, I think. He's, in my opinion, he's your number 1 goaltender next year. Now, Freddie is back, Kochekov is back, Martin is back for next year.
Yeah.
But I'm not in the locker room. But if I'm, if I'm a forward, I'm a defenseman. We just went through what we went through. We lost. It's like I said, it's not all Freddie's fault, but neither of our goaltenders gave us great goaltending. There's kind of the sports psychology thing. There's I don't want to say there's a lack of trust, but like the bond isn't going to be what it was before, I don't think.
Yeah.
And I think at some point you have to stop. Kochekov's a young man, but at some point you need to say, he's the guy of the future as far as we know. Put him in. Like he came up big for us 2 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Anderson's out. It's Ronta Kochekov. Ronta's not doing, I think Ronta got hurt or something. Kochekov's your guy in the playoffs as an unproven, untested rookie and did a great job.
Well,
right. I keep seeing Kochekov rise to the occasion more than not. I'm not saying he doesn't have feelings because he's young and he does, but more often than not, I see him rise to the occasion, but they don't seem to trust him, and I don't get that.
So I think that I would have gone with Kochekov, not Kachuk.
That's other off-season debate, sir.
Yeah, another one. Yeah, exactly. Kochekov, I would have gone with had he won Game 3. I think that Rod basically made the only decision that he could make, which was to go back to Freddie for Game 4 after the overtime loss. Kochekov did not play terribly in Game 3, but the overtime goal deflection seeps through between his arms on a deflection from the bread man, and you could see just the devastation in his eyes. It was game 3, and I was like, man, that sucks. That's not on him, but I think the only if he had won that game, Kochetkov would have stayed in.
See,
I fully believe that. Like he won that game, and now you give him that chance to go again. That's the way that you do it. But he lost, and now you're fighting for your life. Freddie has been your number one the whole time. You have to go with him. And Freddie played great and won game 4. And then he turned around in hostile environment and played even better, a 4-1 victory. Now, he was swimming a lot. That was one thing that maybe you could have said, yeah, you know what? Kochetkov didn't lose the net nearly as much in that one game as, Freddie had been losing the net all series. Like he was flopping a lot, swimming most of the time.
Much more animated than usual.
Yeah, when he's on, very quiet, doesn't move much. He uses that big frame of his. He's huge. He's a monster of a man. He can block the net, right? So, but when he starts swinging and moving too much, he loses the net too easily. And that, in the end, was the problem. I would say, yes, I agree with you. I would have gone with Kochetkov, but he had to win the time that he was in. He had to win to keep going and keep getting that effort.
See, I would have put him in game 4 because, yeah, if you saw the pictures of Piotr after game 3, I mean, he was visibly shaken.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think everybody's first inclination is, oh, that's not good, right?
Yeah.
But this is Pyotr Kochetkov. This is the kid who wanted to fight the entire Iowa Wild team by himself.
Yeah.
If there's anything right, I think that's going to motivate Pyotr, it's seeing that loss. And he seems like the kind of guy who's going to internalize that, and it's just going to tick him off.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet he would have been super spicy in game 4, which is what the Hurricanes needed. They needed something to get some energy into him, because they would have these 5 and 10 minute segments of like just domination. We saw it in the Islanders series where they just came out flying, and you're like, oh wow, like that's the team that we've been missing. Yeah. Right. And then they go into intermission, you come out and it's like, where did that team go? Like, who is the replacement team? Because this team is not good.
Yeah, these are imposters. Yeah.
I feel like Pyotr is the kind of guy who would channel all that negative energy and the hurt and the feelings he had in game 3. And I think he would have had a phenomenal game 4 if given the chance. Now, maybe Rod doesn't want to put that on a kid, right? You don't want to shake his confidence, have 2 bad games in a row, then you're out of the playoffs. There's a lot of other things, but I don't worry about playing Anderson too much, especially when he had off most of the year for medical. But you're right. When Freddie is on, it's obvious. Minimizes movement, very relaxed, composed, just a mechanical goaltender, right? He does things the right way. And he wasn't that throughout the playoffs for the most part. And that's when you know, okay, this isn't a good, like you can kind of tell within the first few minutes, I'm going to go, oh, this is going to be one. He'll stop things, but he's going to struggle to do it.
Mm-hmm. And,
I still believe Freddie and Kochetkov can be a good one too. And I think that they can get you further. We're not going to talk a ton of trades and things this week. We're going to recap that in its own episode, but will that pairing get you a Stanley Cup? And before this year, I would have said yes. And I still think that they can, but not if they both are having an off week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if they both have an off series, you're toast. And there are goaltenders in the league, like, Saros is one of the few come to mind that maybe would be available, that even when they're having an off one with the firepower in front of you, it'd be fine. Now, that being
Yeah.
said, we're hanging a lot of this on goaltenders. Penalty kill was 74%. When's the last time that happened, right? If the penalty kill is 90%, 85%, anywhere in that range, with so many one-goal games, it's probably a different series. So, there's
It totally is.
plenty of blame to go around, right?
It totally is, because when you look at the 5-on-5 play, the Hurricanes carried the play 5-on-5 by and large throughout the series. They carried the play when it was 5-on-5. And the Rangers made the most of the opportunities that they had on the power play. They made it, and on the penalty kill. Like, the special teams was theirs through and through. And ifs and buts and candy and nuts, the story, right? It's just,
yeah,
it was the special teams that decided this series. And it's frustrating now, because now we look at, what our future holds, and there's a lot of unknowns. Also, with a lot of unknowns are what we're expecting from the finals, the Eastern and Western Conference finals. How about those series? You know what I mean? Okay, so here's my question to you, Brad. I'm going to put you on the spot now. Do you want the Rangers, who just put you out, to move to the Cup final, or do you want the Panthers, who put us out in a sweep last year, to go back to the Stanley Cup final? Pick your poison, I guess.
That's honestly, it's pretty easy for me. There's the two schools of thought, right? If the team that beat you wins the cup, then maybe it eases the pain. I don't like that theory, because, a month later, I've already dealt with it. Like, I'm over,
Yeah.
I want Florida to just, I think Florida's a better team.
Yeah.
In general, up and down the lineup, I think New York has more skill, but I think Florida's going to just wear them down.
Yeah.
And the bittersweet part of this for me is that I have always loved Coach Mo as a person.
Yeah.
I love his sense of humor. He has been on fire these playoffs with his quotes to the media. I have never been a big fan of him as a coach. However, when Florida hired him, I said, wow, they just went from cup contenders to maybe not making the playoffs, because they just hired Paul Maurice. And he's going to slow things down there, and it's just going to be ugly. But he's adapted. He's learned, Rod Brindamore, that he needs to change up what makes his system work to make his system better. Like, he has to give up some control, and he's done that. So in this series, I'm pulling for Paul Maurice. Like, he couldn't get it done here, but still a hell of a guy. So I'm pulling for Paul Maurice to move on, who then I hope gets his butt kicked by the Dallas Stars.
There you go. And yeah, I'm kind of with you. What is it? What? I'll tell you what it is. It's not. Look, I'd love to see Trocheck, because as much as he of a pain in the arse he was to this team, he used to play for us, and he was darn appreciated. Someone that I wish we could have held on to. He's
the pest you really do. You hate him when he's on their team. You love him when he's on yours. Like, he is that guy.
So that's, I'd love to see him succeed, but I'm with you I've had the chance to speak to the man in person. He's nothing but class. He is, I dig him. And you're right. The post-game chats and quotes, my gosh, the guy is just straight fire, right? I love it.
When he told him, he said, just write what you want, and tomorrow I'll agree that I said it. I'm like, that's just Paul Maurice.
It was priceless. It was absolutely priceless. So yeah, I'd like to see, Florida, put the boots to the Rangers. And the only reason for that really is I want the New York Ranger fans to just suffer. I want that. And you know what? They're really getting close to the team that shall not be named. Really close.
Yeah, it's the fact there's so many of them in Raleigh. Like obviously you and I aren't there, but like even throughout the regular season, there's contention between there's some animosity between Rags fans and Canes fans just because of the New York contingent who didn't want to live there but doesn't want to let it go.
Yeah. I hope they caught the guy that sucker punched that one fan. I hope they actually caught him. They got his picture out there. So I sure hope they got him and that he never sees the inside of the PNC again. But the other series are great. And I like Florida. Both matches are very entertaining. East and West, you're getting great examples of excellent hockey. Excellent hockey. Both of them are tied at 1, are they not? No.
Yep. Both series are tied at 1. Yep. Dallas tied it up last night.
That's right. In overtime, was it not? No, that overtime one was the Oilers winning the first one in overtime.
Right. And yeah.
And then Dallas held on last night for the 3-1. Look, I want to see Dallas play well, but that's another very, very entertaining series. The Oilers look great. And there's a part of me that as a Canadian, I would love to see a Canadian team in the final. But Dallas is just too much. They're a deeper team with a better goaltender. Now Skinner can play great, but he's already shown how bad he can be this playoff season.
Yeah.
Right. So they were lucky to get past Vancouver. I'll say that they were lucky to get past Vancouver. And the task is even more difficult in the final. Can they do it? Of course they can, because they've got Draisaitl, who is on fire. The man is just lighting it up, scoring from down low.
Yeah. If I had to pick McDavid or Draisaitl, and I've said this for years, I would take Draisaitl.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm with you there too. As great as, Connor McDavid is, I really like the player makeup.
Yeah. I like Draisaitl's overall game better.
Yeah.
Like 100%. If you want highlights, McDavid's your guy. I mean, the guy's a phenomenal offensive talent.
So great series, both of them. I can tell you, a lot of people, when your team loses out, you turn off the TV. Nothing to see anymore. Don't have any. You're really shorting yourself by not watching this hockey, because it's great.
Yeah, I'm with you. And the main reason for me is there's nothing better than watching OT playoff hockey, and you have no investment at all in who wins.
It feels better, doesn't it?
Your blood pressure stays normal, right? You're not binge snacking to keep to get the nervous energy out or any of those things.
Yeah.
You can just sit back and you can watch a team like Dallas and Edmonton especially and go, like, look at the talent, like look at the level of hockey being played here. Yeah. And look at how good these teams are. Like, and for me, Dallas has always been kind of my maybe. I don't have a second favorite team, but if I had one, it probably would be Dallas.
Yeah,
it's just a team that, with the exception of Jamie Benn, what is there to hate about them? Their fans are typically cool. Like, most of the players are awesome. Otter is an amazing nickname for anybody ever in the world, right? You have Heiskanen, Johnson, Robertson, Tyler Seguin, former Bruin, like up and down. I mean, I don't know. There's I don't have anything about the Dallas Stars that I'm like, oh gosh, that's the worst, except for maybe JB Benn.
Yeah. He kind of crosses the line a little bit.
Yeah.
So the message in the end, Brad, I think that we can say from the Storm Cellar, keep watching the hockey. Just because the Canes aren't in it doesn't keep watching it, because it's great.
Yep. And Worlds are going on if you don't want to watch an NHL, right?
Yeah, 100%.
World hockey, bigger ice surface, much more open, much more offensive minded. Skating, wins games in international competition. So if you're somebody who's newer to hockey, you don't watch international competitions like the Olympics, like Worlds, watch them. Because
and everyone's running out now because today's the last day.
Oh yeah.
The bronze and the gold medal games are being played today, and sadly, Canada loses out to Switzerland in a shootout. Switzerland and Czechia.
Yep.
Czechia are playing in the finals, and that is going to be an amazing game.
Right, it's Czechia and the Swiss.
Yeah,
that'll be and you know, Hurricane. I almost said former. I'm getting ahead of myself. Current Hurricane, because he is an RFA. Marty Necas has been on fire.
Yeah,
for his homeland.
6 points in 4 games. He's just lighting it up, playing real well. All right, we've been dancing around it for a while, ignoring the elephant in the room. Let me say, and I know you're saying it too. A heartfelt, huge thank you to Don Waddell. Involved with this team for 9 years. Everyone makes jokes. We like our team. Everyone makes the jokes, right? But seriously, the reason why we all like the team is because of the work that he put in, the pieces that he helped build. You know what I mean? Along the way, what he brought in, all of the development, all of the growth, everything right up to the end of this season. Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Waddell, and good luck in Columbus. It's not settled yet, but it's settled. And if there's anyone who could fix what is going on in that garbage fire of a franchise as it stands right now in Columbus, it's Don Waddell. I fully believe that. He's the guy that can fix whatever is going on there. Tulsky gets that nasty interim.
I think that's just the politics. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The Hurricanes have a couple of guys, right? York could do it. We have, Mike Foreman. I know people have flown his name. I don't think he's the guy for that job right now. But for those who don't know, Eric Tulsky is an analytics guy. He started out like blogging analytics. I think it was like the Flyers, and super smart guy. Like I'm pretty sure his PhD, really understands data and has been helping make these decisions. Who do we bring in? Who do we let go? What's the value on them for a long time? All thanks to Don. Don did a phenomenal job. He and Rod Brindamore getting together and bringing this team back to consistently being in contention for at least, decent playoff runs. The only team who's got 6 round wins in the last 6 years.
Yep.
And they've really taken Carolina and put them back on the map. Players want to come here. The attitude, RBA gets so much of the credit, but Don Waddell behind the scenes is doing just as much important work as Rod has in terms of that. Canada is up 2-1 over Sweden right now in the third period.
Hey, thank you.
The other thing I appreciate about Don is I always joke about this on social media. It's like, it's amazing. Don says, I'm going to do X, and then he does X, and everybody's shocked.
Yeah.
Don's a pretty straight shooter. If he's not going to tell you, he'll just be like, I'm not going to talk about that. But when Don says, I'm going to do X, he just does X. It's just what he does. Now, maybe it's a little like the show Lost, where like maybe he says, I'm going to do X, and you don't realize like there's a twist, right? But then you look back, you go, no, he told us like what he said was 100% accurate, right?
Isn't that?
And that's what I'm going to miss about him, because some GMs, they'll be like, oh, we're definitely not trading so-and-so, and the next day they're out, right? And Don would be like, I'm looking around, I'm shopping, I'm doing my thing. I don't think a lot will change with Tulsky as interim. And like I said, I think that's a political thing. I think Eric has earned this job. I think that interim tag will be removed. But
Right.
I think they're going to go through a search, right? Because it's Tom Dundon, and Tom is not going to shortcut anything. He's going to say, I'm 99.9% sure Eric is the guy. And I'm going to conduct a search. So I'm 100% sure. And then he's going to be 100% sure. And then he's going to remove the interim tag. That's fully what I expect to happen. The real question for me is, does he make Tulsky president of the club? Which I don't think he should, right? Don has worn both hats. Jim Rutherford before him. President right now needs to handle the construction of all the plans they have for the arena site.
Oh, yeah.
General manager needs to run a hockey club. And that's fine the last 6 or 7 years, 10 years, and going back when the president doesn't have all that much to do. Mm-hmm. But now that the president needs to basically be, involved as almost like a project manager, which they'll have some of those working under him. But now that you're separating it, you're going for a big move here, right? You're going to build up the arena. You're talking about hotels, restaurants, bars, parking garages, all these other things. I don't want a general manager focusing on those things, even in the offseason. I don't want him thinking today, can we make it a 4-story parking garage or a 5-story parking garage? Or can we move 2 stories underground? What I want him thinking is, how do I make the team better next year? So my question is less about, does Eric get the GM tag? 'Cause I think he will, for the permanent position.
Yeah.
Who's going to become the president of the club? And I don't think it should be Tulsky because of the workload, not that he's not capable.
Brad, see, that's why you're the brains of this operation here in the Storm Cellar.
That's why we're in trouble.
It's a very, very valid point that I couldn't agree more with you on. It is extremely rare to have one person in a decision-making position who can focus and do that one particular job great when he's got 8 jobs to do. Or, you know what I mean? Even when you split it up into 2. That's why there are CEOs and COOs and CFOs, and that's why they have all of those extra positions, because it's too much to give for one thing. And really, in the grand scheme of things, yes, this is a business. Yes, Mr. Dundon wants to make more money on his investment in the team, and that's fantastic. That will come with a great team. So re-signing Rod was important, number one, because he's created the culture and he's created the environment where people and players want to come here. They want to come to Raleigh. That's the difference. They've made it a destination squad where people can go. The problem, though, is the GM has to be able to focus entirely on landing the players and developing and growing the team. Just let him do the one thing. Have someone else deal with infrastructure. I don't want Tulsky dealing with infrastructure. I want that big brain of his, the IQ that's a few hundred points over mine and everyone else's, to focus on landing the players and getting them signed. That's what I want. And you brought it up first. You get all the credit. I'm just riding the coattails. That's exactly what we need. I'm going to throw a very quick question out for you. And it's a reminiscent thing. Waddell's best move.
Oof. Yikes. Oh man, I gotta think about that.
See, I have
Go for it.
I have one. The one that surprised me and caught me off guard and that made me the happiest. It was the way he somehow landed Trocheck and had someone else paying part of his bill getting out of there. Like when he landed Trocheck, that was a surprise, caught everyone off guard. But it was landing Burns. No one saw that coming. No one. You know, now there are other moves, and I don't want to blurt them all because I'd be taking, your possible answers.
Yeah.
So I'll say, so the way he landed Burns and the way it happened and how it happened, very quick, quiet, and all of a sudden, holy crap,
So I have a couple, and this is recency bias, I'm sure, setting in. One might be getting Svechnikov locked up for 8 years when he did.
Yeah.
Because as the cap continues to go up, a kid like Svechnikov, if he continues to grow and develop, which he should, it's just going to cost more. You know what I mean? Like he locked him up for 8 years when he had the opportunity to, at a very reasonable price when you look at other players of similar ilk around the league. When Andre is being a power forward, the quintessential power forward in the league, unstoppable, worth every penny. And we've seen he's struggled some since the ACL, right?
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I think landing Gensel this year might be his biggest move for a couple of reasons, and not all to do with. Obviously things didn't turn out. One, it showed he believed in the team, that he and Tom understood that we need to do something like that. Now is the time, right? I've been patient. I've always said I'm in on anybody potentially, but he hasn't made the moves. And this year he said, and he kind of joked about it, right? He's like, if I wouldn't have made a move, I don't know what the Caniacs would have done to me, right? So he understood the timing. He showed the team and the fans that the organization is willing to go all in to try and put a cup contender on the ice.
Yeah.
But it also shows that, much like the Burns trade, this is almost like Burns Part 2. He pulled that out of a hat in some ways. Like, nobody was expecting Gensel from our end. And then the rumors abound, and I think we're all like, yeah, right. Like, we never get, like, the big fish. He got the big fish, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it also shows players and other teams, Carolina's a destination now. It's not like the old days where they're having to overpay and pull teeth to get guys to come here.
Yeah.
Gensel, I know people thought that Gensel back to Pittsburgh. Like, he sold his house. And that doesn't mean he can't go back there. But if you think you're only going to be gone for 6 months, you don't sell your house and uproot your family, even if you're going to buy another house in Pittsburgh. You know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I hear you.
So I think I think signing Gensel, it's as much about what that represents to the organization and fan base as it does to the actual move. You landed the biggest fish again, right? It's like the Burns move. Like, you bring out a move nobody really saw coming. It shows the guys want to come here. It shows the guys want to play for Rod. It shows that guys like the area. It shows the organization is willing to invest when the time is right.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might be his biggest move for all of those reasons.
That's a great one. I think I can speak for you when I say the one that surprised us the most was the Nedeljkovic being let go to Detroit, and you and I being in full panic mode because now we have 0 goaltenders. 0. None.
I remember making that joke. I made a meme of Don Waddell, and it said, the fans can't complain about the goaltenders if we ain't got no goaltenders.
That's exactly it. It was so, and we were like, what the heck are we doing here? Like, we need someone. Nedeljkovic was great, right?
And we didn't know who was available. That was, part of it was like, who were they going to get? Like, my God.
All of a sudden, and then out of nowhere, Ranta first, and then Freddie Anderson. And it was like, okay, we'll just shut up now.
Right. There was a total steal on his part, I thought.
It was too.
And I was excited. I don't know that I was fully sold because I didn't know enough about Ronta at that point. But I was like, if they got Anderson, like, oh wow, that's a big deal. Yeah, when they let those guys go, Mrazek and Nedeljkovic just like, oh, what? He did what?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. But that's, he was always that's how the proof. He was always working, always kicking tires. And you know what? That's the funny thing. Carolina was in on every possible trade in the league. Every single one. No, even the throwaway trades between teams in the West, you know what I mean? He was in there somewhere because he was, kicking the tires. Hey, what's going on over here?
Is there a trade that we heard we were in on that we wanted that he was right to not push for? And I'll give you the example, the one that jumps into my mind. The fact we did not get Timo Meier in retrospect, probably a great move. I mean, you don't know what he's going to do here versus New Jersey, right? But for what for what happened, it wasn't like they gave up a ton. Don had the assets to make the trade, right? He could have probably made that happen and didn't. And then, but had you done that, like you wouldn't have been able to get Gensel.
Do you know what the one was for me that I'm really glad didn't come through? Tarasenko.
Oh, yeah.
Who's in Florida now.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, and that was more really on Tarasenko's end more than anything. But the fact that we were in on that one too, one of the top, like they always put, when they say certain teams are in on this guy, the one that they believe most likely is at the top. And we always saw Carolina's name right near the top, number 1 or 2 of the top 3 always in. And that's all due to Mr. Waddell.
And he fired his agent to not come here because he didn't like it. I mean, that's after he did that, and then the rumors surfaced that he was going to leave Ottawa.
Oh,
and people were like, "Oh, like we get Tarasenko." I'm like, "No, we can't. I don't want him. Like he's gone. No,
want
like
any part of that.
Dead to me.
None.
That's a good one.
It is a good one.
All right.
One final thing to talk about here.
Yeah.
We'll wrap it up on this. Brad, what do you think the top 3 priorities are for whichever GM is involved, whether it's Eric, whether it's someone else? What are your top 3 priorities? I have 3 priorities, and I also have like whether or not they can be done or not. So I don't know if you want me to blast through my 3 and then give you the chance, or how do you want to do this?
Why don't you give your first one?
Okay, I'll give my first one. My top priority is signing Jake. I think that would be a boon for the team. I think seeing what we have seen, we know how great he could be in that Canes sweater. I really want to see him back. The problem is, I strongly believe that we are not going to be able to sign him because I believe that the only way we could have re-signed him was to win the cup. I think we win the cup, he would have just been ready to stay because he sees what's around him, but when what you have around you gives you the instant results, that instant high, lifting that cup, my goodness, right? So I want him, but I don't think we're going to get him. That's number 1.
I agree. I think Gensel's number 1, and I'll explain why number 2 is number 2 when we get to number 2. I think you have a shot. The main thing I've heard is you can't afford to keep him. Folks, we have 8 expiring UFA contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you have to replace them with 8 players, but that doesn't mean you have to replace them with 8 players who make the same amount of money.
Right.
You don't want to be Toronto. You don't want to tie up most of your cap space in 4 guys. That's not what you want to do. But there's a lot of rumors around a KK buyout, which would free up, because this is the last year he's eligible. You can buy him out for a third of his contract. Right. And that gets split over like a dozen years. So the cap hit is very small. I'm not saying that's the right thing to do. I'm just saying it's an option.
Yeah.
Aho's tied up very reasonable. Svechnikov is tied up very reasonable. You do have a couple of guys you're going to have to pay. My number 2 priority is one of them.
Yeah.
But that person's a restricted free agent. So you can afford Gensel. The question is that the right move? As a fan, I don't see anybody who's going to come in and fit in better and give us the kind of firepower that he can. I think he had 0.8 points per game in the playoffs, and he was over a point per game for us in the regular season, right? And in the playoffs, everybody on our team was down in terms of points per game. I think Aho was the one person at like a point per game.
Yeah.
So I think I think Jake's the guy. He seems to like it here, seems to like the weather. This will be his first offseason. Like, assuming he's sticking around since he doesn't have a home back in Pittsburgh right now, he might get out there and play golf with the boys and realize it's 2 hours to the beach and 2 hours to the mountains and those things, and that might set in. So I think you have I think you have at least as good a shot as anybody else. Now, if you win the cup, you probably have the lead, which maybe you don't have, but I think you have a reasonable shot of signing Jake. I think signing Jake would be a good indicator that we're not doing a full rebuild, right? We're going to retool some things, but we're right there. Like, maybe we're not competing for a cup next year, but within a couple of years, we're right back at it. Yeah. So I would say Jake would be my number one guy. And I'm not going to combine them. Like, I'm not going to say like, oh, we need to re-sign our forwards or anything just to make this more difficult.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to give you 3 individuals. So that's perfect. My first one.
Well, I think my second one is the same as your second one, too. Jarvie needs to be signed. Okay? That's and not just signed, but I want to see him in a long-term situation as well. Not a bridge, not whatever. I want him signed and sealed. The kid played the entire season, his best yet, with a torn labrum and a rotator cuff. Gone. And he was playing harder than some of the other players were on the ice every friggin' night. What more do you want? I've said this dozens of times before. People know I don't always like the flashy guys. I just want the guys that give me the cliche 110, right? And that's Jarvis. He's playing a 200-foot game with great success, energy, the vibe that he brings to the team. I mean, it's out of this world. He's got a great charisma about him, keeps everyone loose. He's going out there scoring goals. He's getting better. He's on the penalty kills as well. He's taking face-offs more. He is as much a part of the future as Aho is, as Svechnikov is. We need him signed. It's got to be done. Sign Jarvis. Long term. Please don't wait. Please don't hold me. You know what I mean? Like, get it done. That's what I want.
Same. Seth Jarvis is number 2. I see a lot of people very worried about, are we going to re-sign Jarvis? And the answer is yes. He's a restricted free agent. He is not arbitration eligible. Right. That basically means that if he wants to play in the NHL, he kind of has to sign. I mean, he could hold out and not play for anyone, right? But it's not like he's going somewhere. Now, could another team offer sheet him or something? It could. It's going to get matched, right?
Yeah.
You kind of hit the nail on that. Even with the injuries, Jarvis, the reason Adams is my favorite player is he gives you 100% every shift, no matter how good or bad he's playing, no matter how good and bad the team is playing, no matter the situation, he gives you your best. Jarvis is doing that, and no offense to Kevin, but Jarvis is a first-line guy doing that, right? Not a lunch pail guy who has to do it to stay in the league. Like, Jarvis is doing it because he's young and has the legs and the desire. And that's amazing to see. Like, he put up 30 goals with a bad shoulder. I mean, and you saw it in the Rangers series. He took a couple in the shoulder. We thought maybe, did he take one to the side of the head or something?
Yeah.
And then he's icing his shoulder and like, oh, he hurt his shoulder. Well, no, he's been hurt the whole season. It just, he probably popped out or something for a minute.
And pounds back a couple of Advil on the bench and out for the next shift.
Right. Yeah, I think it was more than a couple, but
yeah.
He did like the Dr. House method of you take a handful and you throw them in your mouth and whatever goes down, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jarvis is the kind of guy that if he continues to develop at the rate he's developing, and he becomes the player we think he can be, that might be one of Toronto's biggest mistakes of all time. I mean,
of all time,
of giving us that pick just to get rid of Patrick Marleau. Kane's legend, Patrick Marleau.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think Jarvis, a lot of time, and look, this is another thing to consider. The Canes probably do want to lock him up long term. They probably want to give him 8 years, get him locked into today's pricing because the price is only going to go up.
Yeah.
But remember, Jarvis's camp probably wants the bridge year because they can get him for a lot of money for 2 years, and that gets him that much closer to his unrestricted free agent contract when he could really make the money.
Yeah.
So when this deal gets done, if the term is not 8 years, just know that that's probably what the Canes were working for. But Jarvis's camp, his agents, his whole agent's purpose is to get him as much money as possible.
Yep.
And the way you do that is you get a bridge deal, and then if you can get a second bridge deal, even better. And then you're on your third pro contract, and now you become a UFA, and now you can ask for whatever you want and go wherever you want, right? So that's where the loggerheads is, right? That's where things are going to come to a head of what is the term going to look like. I think the Hurricanes will give him the money that he'll accept a long-term deal.
Mm-hmm.
But if he doesn't, don't panic. That's normal. You normally see bridge deals when guys think they deserve a lot more than what the team thinks of, and they're like, we're just going to do a bridge and let you prove yourself. The other reason you do bridge deals is to get your client to unrestricted free agent status as quickly as possible. And with a talent like Jarvis, that might be what they're looking for. You just don't know. Yeah. So Jarvis, definitely number 2. I hope they lock him up long term. That kid is such a delight to watch. And he is still just a baby. Like, he's got a lot of growing.
So young.
If he can mend the shoulder and put on 10 pounds of muscle this summer, he's going to be a wrecking ball. So,
and he's a rink rat too, which we've heard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, he just is all about improving his skill, improving himself, and he's having fun doing it. There's something about that attitude that he has.
It's infectious for sure.
Living his best life and having the most fun. It's like he doesn't know he's in a business. He's just having fun. And good on him. Like, just good on him. I want him signed so bad. Oh my God.
Right.
Number 3 priority. And I've been flip-flopping on this. And I have defended him for a long, long time, since the beginning. But the number 3 priority is to buy KK out and use the money saved now to help build in other areas and sign in other places. And it pains me to say that for KK. I love the way he plays. He's another guy that works hard. He is a guy that we could look at as the next Jordan Staal when Jordan walks off in the sunset. The problem is we have so many other signings, right? Slavin is still in the future, right? What's that going to involve? We have a lot of players. Natchez, do we want to keep him? Those drop passes to no one make me nuts, and I want to deal him every time he does it. And then he goes out and scores a snipe that says, that's my boy. And he's another one that's young, who's growing, and is someone that we have said all along is sensational. He's got all the tools. He's got everything you need. He just needs to put them all together.
Yeah,
I would love to see Natchez put them all together here, but that can't happen unless we find money from somewhere else. And I'm sorry, KK, the work and the effort that you put in doing the things that don't appear on the score sheet are immeasurable. I love his work. I love the big hits that he throws. But he's a victim of circumstance of where the team is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Just too many other things that we need to sign, and we got to find the money to do it. And so I would put that as the third priority, as buying him out, thanking him for his effort and what he did to the team that shall not be named. I will always love him for that. Let him go out there, and he's another young one, right? Who's still,
Yeah, he's only 23.
He's only
baby.
23. Like, he's another baby, right? Let him go somewhere and earn his keep and collect on that money for the next 12 years and leave it at that. And it really pains me to say that, Brad. I don't.
No, I'm with you.
Saying that at all.
Somebody online, they made the perfect point. They said we have like 4 fourth line centers.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're right. I love KK. I would love to keep KK. The only thing about KK is I don't even mind paying him the 4.8, which is a lot for what he's producing, because we thought he was going to be able to fit in the Trocheck spot as 2C, which means you need to put up points.
Yep.
It's fine to be the 3C. I would love to have him as a 3C. You mentioned he's the victim of circumstance, and I agree, but I would say the circumstance is that he was drafted 3rd. If he was drafted 15th, we're not even talking about this because it's a non-issue. He was the Canadians drafted him way too high.
Yep.
Because he was I think he was slated to go 8th to 12th, and they took him at 3.
Yeah.
And it just didn't pan out, and that's not his fault, but that's why people
and then
say and do the things they do.
And into that pressure cooker,
right? And then they threw him to the Wolves, and they're like, why didn't he develop? It's like, because you're bad at developing players.
Yeah.
Jordan Staal is making 2.9. KK's making $2 million over that for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't disagree with you. I think that's a good place to go. But I think our third priority is, and this is probably personal bias, but Jalen Chatfield.
Oh, yeah. Jesus. I almost forgot about him.
I am resolved that Natchez is gone, because Natchez is an arbitration-eligible RFA. Arbitrators generally side with players in terms of what they think they're worth. Yeah. They're worth. Because they'll look at the points and not look at the drop passes and the lazy D behind, on the backside of the net kind of things. And I don't think you want to pay Natchez that much. I hope Natchez goes out today. I hope he scores 10 goals in the gold medal game. I really do. Because right now his stock has never been higher. And if he can go score 10 goals in the gold medal game today,
goodness.
His stock will be the highest it's ever going to be, and you trade him tomorrow. And I love Marty Natchez, but that's just where we're at. It's not the player. It's how does the player fit in this system? Because you can see when he goes and plays for Czechia, he is putting up all kinds of points. And now, granted, that's not the NHL playoffs, right?
No.
I'm not saying the Worlds are an easy competition, but it's not what he was playing, right? There's a different game.
Brad, do you think he went over there as quickly as he did? I couldn't believe how fast he was over there. Do you think he did that because he's got a contract situation up and he wasn't getting a chance to play anymore in the playoffs with the spotlight on him to prove his talent, prove his skill, and he needed another audience to keep his name in the forefront? Do you think that's strategy?
I don't know. I mean, he seems like a pretty quiet. I think he just wanted to go get on the ice for his home country as quick as possible. Maybe though, I mean, we like to think we know these guys and we don't. But yeah, I mean, I think keeping his name out there, if that was what he's thinking, it's the right move for him.
Yeah, smart.
So to come back towards my point a little bit, Pesce and Shea did not have a great postseason.
Nope.
You can blame some of that on D'Angelo, but not all of it, right? And I'm not saying I wouldn't like to keep Pesci, or I'm sorry, I said Pesci, I meant Shea. You can blame some of Shea's postseason with D'Angelo,
Right.
but not all of it. My question is, he's an unrestricted free agent. Somebody's going to throw a lot of money at Brady Shea. I don't know that you want to match it. Somebody's going to throw more money at Brett Pesci than they should, as much as I would love to keep him, and you shouldn't match it.
Yep.
Somebody's going to throw a lot of money at Jalen Chatfield, and who's a year younger than Shea. He is not as good offensively, but he is a terror defensively.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen numbers as high as $6 million, $6.5 million thrown around for Chatfield. I don't think it's going to go that high because he doesn't have the offensive upside. Could I see Brady Shea getting $6 or $7 million? Oh yeah, I could see somebody throwing that kind of money at him or more. Could I see them throwing $6 million maybe at Brett Pesci based upon what he had been doing? Maybe, although I think this year has been rough for him. I don't know that he's going to get it. But I think Chatfield can be had cheaper than the other two, which gives you more money for things like Gensel. So Chatfield has wheels. He's sound. He has been a third pairing guy for you, even though he and Orlov should have been your second pairing.
Yep.
You know, when you look at our defense next year, Dmitry Orlov makes 7.75. Oof. That's almost 9% of your cap space. You cannot roll him as a third pair defenseman again, because you're going to have to pay somebody. If they're skating number 2 minutes, they're going to want second pairing money.
Yeah.
So Orlov's on the second pair. I don't see how he can't be, right? You have Slavin, you have Burns. Burns is I'll save my Burns takes for another time. You have Scott Morrow at least signed on the cheap.
Yep.
But to me, if you bring back Chatfield, you can put Chatfield Orlov as your second pair, and then you can either put Scott Morrow in as the third pair and pair him up with somebody, and for $3 or $4 million, your defense is set, right, on top of Chatfield. Or you can bring in 2 third pairing guys. Coughlin's probably gone. He's a restricted free agent. D'Angelo should not be back.
No.
I don't think Shea and Pesci will be back. So I would focus on Chatfield.
Brad, I have a question for you. First of all, how much is Chatfield making right now? But second of all, I had heard whispers in the wind that one very young, very talented Russian defenseman was being discussed at maybe accelerating when he would come here. I heard whispers of that. Do you think that's possible, A? And if it is possible to bring him over early for next season, that really changes a lot of stuff, doesn't it?
Yeah. So the good news, right? Those are 2 easy answers, right? Chatfield is making $775,000.
That's it?
That's it. And when people are like, oh my God, he's going to get paid, like he's going to get paid. He's going to make probably $4 million, maybe $5 million. But that's still very reasonable compared to other second pair defensemen. Yeah, he's making $775. Is he going to get a huge pay bump? He is absolutely going to get a huge pay bump. It should be in Carolina. I would give him $4 or $5 million in 5 or 6 years, no problem. In terms of Nikishin, yeah, the rumors keep swirling, and Don was like, hey, we're going to do what we're going to do. We're going to try and get him out, basically. SKA, the team he plays for in Russia, basically was like, yeah, he's not leaving for $100 million. So wow. I think there's zero chance. I think that's one of those, maybe Don puts it out there to float, because Don probably legitimately made some calls and said, hey, can we give you some money and get him over here? Look, Boom is their captain. He is rated the top-ranked player outside of North America, as I recall.
Yeah.
The kid is, when he comes over, if we can get him over here, is going to be phenomenal.
Yep.
He instantly makes your team better. I don't see it happening this year. I personally don't think there's any chance whatsoever, because they've you're not going to let your captain go unless there's a lot of money involved. And I think Tom is perfectly willing to wait a year and not have to pay out some exorbitant sum, right? Especially when
Is he
they're
not under a contract already? Like, how does this work? We have his rights, or
we
does
have
he
his
not?
rights. Correct. We have his rights. If he comes to North America, he has to play for us. Or he sits out, right? But if he's going to play in North America next year, he plays for us. So he has 1 year left with SKA. Then he comes over here, and we'd have to sign him to a deal, which I don't think it's a foregone conclusion. But most of these guys, even the guys who are superstars over there in places like the KHL, they know the best hockey players in the world are in the NHL, and they want to put themselves up against the best of the best.
Yeah.
And Boom, I mean, if you just watch his highlights, he's so good. He is mean. He's Kachekov in a defensive. He's kind of mean. He will throw open ice hits. He's thrown a few hits that I've seen that borderline on dirty, which I will ask him and want him to clean up.
Yeah.
He's not afraid to shoot the puck. He's got a heck of a shot.
And when he does,
he can move the puck. He does all those things. That's another reason why I'm not going to give Shea or Pesci a whole lot of money, because you're going to have they're unrestricted. You're going to have to outbid somebody, and that's just too much. If they were restricted free agents, I would say, yeah, you go for it. You try and re-sign them, but they're not.
Yeah.
Chatfield is somebody who you can actually maybe get back on reasonable terms. I think he will replace probably more Brett Pesci than Brady Shea. But he's unrestricted too, so it's going to cost you probably a little more, but not as much as one of the other two guys. Just because they're proven. Shea's 30, Pesci's 29, Chatfield's 28. So length of contract and stuff is not that big a deal between them. They're all kind of right there. And like I said, some of this is I just like the kid. Like, I like his game. I like what he does.
Oh, I love his play.
But you need somebody who can pair with Orlov that you can trust. And Jalen Chatfield has shown that he can play with Orlov, no problem.
Yep.
Now you have your top 4 defensemen set for next year. Like I said, Mora would not necessarily be my first option, but the kid probably is good enough to take third pairing minutes, at least to start the season, to see how it works out.
Yeah.
And then you go from there. So, yeah, for me, it's Gensel, it's Jarvis, and then it's Jalen Chatfield.
Love it. I mean, who knows how this is all going to play itself out? But I sure, it's the future still looks bright. And hey, and how about, because we haven't had a chance to talk about this, the re-signing of Rod. I mean, you knew it was going to happen. You said it. I was still angry that they hadn't taken care of this stuff a long time ago. But, the machinations of economics in an NHL franchise, they go at their pace, and it's not going to go any faster, regardless of how much screaming Caniacs like me in Calgary, push for it. You know what I mean? Like, it's just not. It's
right. And it's funny with Drager and LeBron and all those guys. All of a sudden, in the middle of the playoffs, Rob Brind'Amour doesn't have a contract. Oh, is he going to the Leafs? Is he going to the Sharks? And then Rod comes out after the season. He gets on with Joe and Joe, right?
Yeah.
Onto their podcast, and he's like, "Oh yeah, we basically had a deal done in September. We just had to iron out the little stuff," which is what all the Caniacs kind of knew. Like, we knew he wasn't going anywhere. The big thing about his contract, real quick to bring up, Ray, Rod gets a 5-year deal, well deserving.
Yep.
Gleason and Daniels, I believe, are on, I think it's 2-year deals with an option, team option.
Okay.
Which to me says regular season's been fine, Rod. Things have disappeared. The power play has disappeared in the playoffs. The penalty kill this year was awful in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a couple years. These are the assistants you want. I'm going to give them to you. Things need to turn around.
Yep.
I'm not going to force your hand now, but in 2 years, you're under contract for 3 more, and they're not. So I think this gives the team a little leverage in meeting Brind'Amour halfway of saying, if we don't see improvement in some of those areas, we're gonna force your hand and make you bring in somebody who can exact change. coaching staffs being stagnant is not a good thing. You don't want the turnover of the Leafs or the Flyers or any of those places. But Rod is one of the longest tenured head coaches now in the league, which is just amazing.
I think there's only three other coaches in the league that are tenured as long as him. Everyone else has been traded, and it's what do they call it? It's a turnstile.
Yeah, it's a revolving door of
coaches in every other team in the league.
Yeah. Oh, so-and-so fired you, but we'll hire you because it's going to work better here. No, it's probably not.
Yeah.
Right. The whole point of bringing Rod Brindamore in was, and not everybody was sure he could do it, was it's new blood. He has new ideas. He's going to do things a different way. I would love to see them bring in a true power play specialist that can say, look, we need to get, and people say, look, the power play was like, what, second or third in the league through the regular season? Well, that's great because they got super hot at the end because it stunk for most of the year, and it disappeared in the playoffs, and that just can't happen. So you can bring in a special teams coach and not call him a power play coach. You can bring in a playoff coach, somebody whose only job is to work on what are the things you're going to need to do better and who are your opponents going to be and how can we defeat them only for the postseason. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, I'd be okay with that too.
Yeah, with Rod getting the 5-year deal, the assistants getting the shorter deal, I think that sends a message that we know you, we trust you, we have faith in your assistants, but if we don't see, whatever they decide is progress, then, we might force new assistants on you. But that's Brad, 3 years from now.
What I didn't understand in all of this is that at the end of the playoffs, how many automatically said they wanted to get rid of Rod? And I'm like, you guys, without the culture, without the environment that he created, there's a good chance we wouldn't even be here. Never mind losing now, And so getting rid of him just seemed, the people that say that, I just really got to question where their head is at and give me the reason who's
better.
Who's better? That's the other thing. Who's better?
What the difference is for me? I'll try and make it short. Paul Maurice came in with the Whalers, moves to Carolina. He's the head coach. Nothing changed. We had the same team on and off the ice for years.
Yeah.
They get rid of him, right? You bring in Laviolette, lock out, win a cup. That's not sustainable. The style of hockey you want to play wasn't sustainable. You bring Paul Maurice back in. Guess what? You're playing the same brand of hockey. Nothing changed.
Yeah.
And Paul Maurice took how long before he made the adjustments that he has made in Florida? And now they're perennial cup contenders, legit hockey team.
Legit.
Rod Brindamore just finished year 6. And we're already seeing him making some changes. You can see him letting guys like Gensel and Nate just do things a little more their way.
Yeah.
Does he have some basic tenements he's going to hold to? Yep. Is he willing to be flexible, it appears, albeit slower than maybe some of the rest of us would like? Yeah, but the flexibility is starting to come in. He's starting to understand, in my opinion, that he's going to have to adapt some to make this a cup-winning, team and strategy. But we're seeing that from him after 6 years. So I'm not worried. Yeah, if the people who just want him gone, please give me a name of somebody who's better. And if it's one of the 57 guys who's been fired from a dozen other teams, my answer is absolutely not.
Yeah, absolutely not. And here's the other question. Do you want to keep being a NHL powerhouse who's always in the talk for a Stanley Cup, who always gives you an opportunity to go to playoff games and feel the excitement in that rink and cheer that team on? Rod Brindamore is a money printing press.
Right.
For for Tom,
Yeah.
which is why I couldn't believe that he wasn't signed and locked up already. He has created a culture and a team that everyone wants to come to, that everyone loves, that we sell out every friggin' night. What more do you want?
Right.
You can't take out such a very important aspect of the team and expect to get the same results.
Right. You ask Kuznetsov, who met Rod during an All-Star game a few years ago.
Yeah.
And when he comes here, what's one of the first things out of his mouth? They got Rod Brindamore. You ask Gensel, they got a Rod Brindamore.
Yeah.
When's the last time a coach went, oh, they have Sheldon. Oh, they have Ruff.
Yeah.
Never. Now, there are players who might be like, yeah, I'm looking forward to playing, I'm looking forward to playing for him. He's a great coach, whatever. But it's not the same. Different. It's not like when guys talk about Brindamore, they're like, that guy, he's been where I've been. He's lifted the cup. He did it the right way. He worked his butt off. And he is fostering a culture that is sustainable, for legit, contention. You're going to be in the playoffs every year. And you can't replace that. You just can't.
You can't. And Brad, and I'll add just one thing further. He has his system is physically taxing, right? It's a not easy system to play.
Yeah.
And so that requires a lot of hard work off the ice as well. But who's there with the players? He's not asking them to do anything that he won't do himself, and probably better than them. Probably
right.
better.
Yeah.
He's doing everything. He's right down in there with the players. That means something. Something.
I found a list. This is from May 2nd of this year. So this is from less than a month ago. Head coaching candidates. These are the head coaches that were fired over the last year, or people think will be candidates for open positions.
Do we have enough time to get them all in?
There's 10. I'm gonna go quick, and you say yes or no. Are they a better candidate than Rod Brindamore?
Okay, here we go.
Jay Woodcroft from the Oilers.
No.
Good, Dean Evison,
but no.
Dean Evison from the Wild.
Nope.
Craig Berube from the Blues.
He's already signed up, isn't he?
Maybe this is a month.
Is,
but yeah, he just got hired in Toronto or something, right?
That would be interesting.
But still, okay. DJ Smith from the Sens.
Who?
DJ Smith.
Who?
Tom McCullen from the Kings.
People have told me that I'm a doppelganger of his, that I look very much like him, and even with that, no.
Better than John C. Reilly, sir. Don Granato.
No.
David Quinn.
No.
Dave Haxtell.
No.
So of an NHL, from Full Press Hockey, of the 10 guys available, were any of them a better choice than Rod Brindamore? No. And it's honestly not close.
Yeah, it's not. And I know that sounds huge homer bias and stuff like that, but the proof's in the pudding.
Right. Do any of those guys have 6 state seasons in the postseason with at least one victory per round in each of those?
Exactly. No. And I'd say for the people out there that say Rod just hasn't gotten you to the Stanley Cup, the whole point is to win the Stanley Cup. What I want everyone to remember is this: in the NHL, in the playoffs, all you have to do is get in and you've got a chance. And why does anyone think that with Rod at the helm, that this team couldn't put those series victories together and win it all?
And even looking back,
get in.
The first 4 games this year were 1-goal games against the Rangers. The last 2 were more than 1 goal. What was it? Every game against the Panthers last year were 1-goal games? You're right there.
One
One bounce in either direction in any of those games and you could have been playing. It's the hardest trophy to win in sports. You are right on the cusp. Did things go well? No. Are there things at the power play, penalty kill that need to be better? Yep. But even with all those problems, you had 4 one-goal games this year in the second round and could have won any of those. And that's with all the things going wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be unfair if everything was going right for you. You'd have blown away everybody. So, yeah, the takes that Rod Brindamore needs to be gone are just
it is so much better and so much more fun to talk about a winning team like this than it is a loser. And
yep,
that's it. That's it.
Yep.
Now, look, if things, knock on wood, turned, terrible for this franchise, you and I would still be talking about it. Know what I mean?
Sure.
We'll still keep this going. We'll still whatever.
Hey,
but I think I can speak for you when I say it's a lot of fun talking about the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, and we've never been afraid to say what we think about anybody. If Rod does something boneheaded, I'll tell Rod. I'll tell it, as I did when I lived in Raleigh. I would tell it to his face and be like, "Yeah, that was not a good idea, Coach."
He didn't call the timeout in Game 6. He didn't call the timeout in Game 6, and he could have.
Yep.
He didn't call it at the right time. He did eventually call it, but to me, it needed to be called. It was too late. The horse was out of the barn.
Yeah.
Speaking of horses out of the barn.
A long one today.
Yeah, it sure was. This episode is out of the barn. We apologize for the length of which we spoke, but we hope you stay with us right to the end. We love you all. As far as the schedule goes, I don't know how it changes, but one thing's for certain, we'll be ready to go and chat you up. And we want to talk to you, Caniacs. We want to hear your takes on the season. We want to get your look at the months ahead, weeks and months ahead. And, we want to hear your story. You're a Caniac. You're proud of it. We want to know how it all became. That's what we are.
Yeah, I think we'll go in a couple weeks, Ray. And we'll let some hockey go by, and maybe next episode we'll talk a little bit about how the playoffs are going.
Sure.
And I think we'll grade the players, and if there have not been any movement by then maybe we'll do a little bit about who do we think should stay and who should maybe go, and who do we find as replacements, right? So we're not done for the season, but yeah, we'll probably skip a week and then get back together. And then for the summer, I think we're going to try and do some maybe special episodes where we talk hockey-related things that maybe aren't necessarily Hurricanes. But we've traditionally kind of taken more or less of a break during the summer. We record sporadically. But yeah, if you would like to share your story for next season, let us know. You can email us at stormcellar97@gmail.com. You can find us at Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97, on Twitter and Instagram and all those things, stormcellar97, and let us know, because we will start looking at new Caniac stories for next year and keep things rolling.
That's exactly it. And we love you all. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to us, and say it with us this one time as we bring this epic omnibus episode to an end. Mm-hmm. Say it with me now. You know what's coming. All of you Caniacs listening to us now, you know where it is. Here it is. Go Canes.
Go Canes.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us by email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.